This is a photograph, a prehistoric photograph of what was seen in the skies or what took place on the landscape where this rock art sits at. Now, it's not just graffiti. It's not just, some Indian just out there drawing stuff on rocks. No, man. They are telling a story. This is evidence of what had happened. So generations upon generations will tell these stories and keep these stories alive, because I really believe that it's meant for our generation to understand what these petroglyphs are talking about. And it's talking about what we're seeing in the skies today. And I think we really need to look at the history of this. Okay, and so what the history says of what these beings are. Now, I looking at the petroglyphs out here, understanding the rock art and studying the rock art for like 15, 20 years now, and understanding the stories here and seeing the spirits in the sky, and then going back and reading some of the Babylonian texts when it talks about the Anunnaki and things like this and stuff that we read in the Bible. Now, let's throw religion aside for a minute. Let's not talk about religion at all, but let's look at this Bible as like a type of history book for the world, all right? And this book tells us what these things in the sky is, what we're seeing today, okay? And this is exactly what is carved out there on the mountains in Phoenix, Arizona, matches some of these things, especially in the beginning, when it talks about Genesis 6, as these things came to earth, and the people at that day worshiped these things as gods and performed sacrifice to these beings. And in return, these beings taught these people the secret knowledge of the earth, and out forth of these beings came forth giants. Okay, and I found giant petroglyphs carved out there and things like that. So when we step back for a minute and absorb all of this information, and then you look at the petroglyphs out there, it matches. It matches the Babylonian text. It matches some of the stuff that we read in some of these old scriptures and scrolls. And it's been with us all along. The information has been here all along. We just simply need to stop listening to all these so-called archaeologist people, these people that are trying to mislead us from what's really here, and really step back and examine the evidence and what's credible for ourselves, and let us make up the mind on what's really going on here. And once you go investigate it for yourself and not just take the word, of someone else, but you actually go out there and find out what's really happening, it will change the way you look at the world today. Your whole life will change. You will start to understand that, yes, these things are real. What we're seeing in the skies are real. And another secret here, I'm getting ready to tell you. Are you ready?
Oh, yeah,
These things are not from Alpha Centauri. They are not from Mars. They are not from Venus. These things have been with us the whole time since the beginning of time. This is their planet also. Now, when we read like the Babylonian text and we read some of the Anunnaki text, it tells us that some left, right? Doesn't say spaceships now, does it? Doesn't say some left in a big V-shaped craft that went over Phoenix. Does it say that? No. All it says that some left and some stayed behind. And this is the ones that we're seeing in the skies today are the ones who got left behind. Now, the Hopis tell us that we're right in the middle. We're at the end now. We're pretty much at the end of the fourth world. And we're about ready to enter the fifth world. And I believe that is what's really going on here. And when you look at history, it will tell you that every time the world changes, these things are here to help and mislead, mind you, mankind. Okay, it happened in the beginning with the holocaust, because as the story says, when the holocaust first arrived here, they didn't know how to live. So these things came up out of the sand world. They came down from the skies, and they taught these people how to survive. They ruled for 1,000 years. They worshiped these things as gods. They sacrificed for these things on the altars. And then all of a sudden, the story says the sacrificing stopped. And when that happened, that's when these spirits of the earth and the sky took these people away, never to return again. And so we need to really look at the history here. So if we're seeing these things in the skies in our generation, then what does that say about our future? If we can understand the past on what's really here, this is like a major cover-up. This is the reason why I believe there will never be any disclosure, because the disclosure is a scary thing. If people really understood what's really going on in our skies, if they really understood what the Phoenix Lights really is, man, they would be afraid, and I don't think they would want to live in that valley anymore. They would understand what we're dealing with here is a type of demonic creature, is a type of fallen Nephilim, fallen angels, some would say. And I think that if people really understood this, then it would change everything. It would change everything, and they would be afraid. And matter of fact, when this Holocaust happened for the Holocaustian Indians, there were some that witnessed this. Charles Holbrook in his journals say that some witnessed this, and they were afraid, and they went into the caves, and they hid, and they watched what was going on. And when it was all over with, the leader of the tribe knew that it was wrong for the sacrificing to stop, so he committed suicide on the altar tables, and the existing people, the people that survived this Holocaust, gathered up the gold, and it says that the gold was as high, as tall as the tallest saguaro cactus, and as round as the sun. And they buried all this gold in the tombs of South Mountain, and they cursed this land. They vowed never to live in this valley again. They knew that if they were going to continue to live in this valley, then eventually they would have to go back to war with these spirits of the earth and sky. So they abandoned this land, and they went back to their homeland. Mexico was their destination. So for 400 years, nobody lived in this land. There was Native Americans that lived on the outskirts of this land, and they saw the Phoenix Light, and they saw these orbs in the sky. They saw these demons. They saw these flying serpents, and they were afraid. And rightly they should be, because they know what had happened to their people once before. And so for 400 years, nobody lived here. And then it was Jack Swelling who came around and said, look at the farmland. Look at what the Indians left us. They left us all these canals. Let's build a town here. And so from the ashes of the former civilization rose this fiery bird we now know as Phoenix. And this is where it all comes originally from. But they failed to tell you what the first civilization went through, what had happened to these people, that they were taken away by the Phoenix Lights, they were taken away by these entities. So when we look at what's really going on in our world, and we're seeing these things now, and then sometimes, especially like during, like when the world starts to have war, like World War II, and the Iraqi war. It's just every time man starts to make war with each other, these things are really here. These things are really watching. As a matter of fact, in World War II, they were chasing around these things called the Foo Fighters, right? All right, they're chasing around these red lights everywhere, okay? So every time there's like a major war or there's some kind of conflict here on Earth, these things really start to make an appearance. And I think they know. I think they understand, that it's almost time. It's almost time for us to enter this fifth world. Okay, so let's just say, that the fifth world is about to approach us, and we have this major war that I think some of us know is about to happen, and it's this huge Holocaust, and after this, there will be survivors to this. And it says, the prophecies say that 2/3 of the world will be destroyed. But there will be survivors. Now, these survivors who are living there at this time won't have any food, won't have any water. The air is going to be polluted. There's going to be radiation everywhere. But yet they're going to see the Phoenix Lights, right? They're going to see these lights in the sky. One's going to come down, and he's going to anthropomorph. He is going to shapeshift into a man, just like what the petroglyphs depict out here on South Mountain. They depict, some would call them lizard men. and he's going to turn himself into a man, and he's going to say, look what I can do for you. I can clean up the waters. I can clean up the air. I can give you food. In return, worship me. I am the Christ. Okay, and this opens up the whole new book of Revelations here. Okay, and so mankind will be forced to be fooled by this being because he doesn't have a choice. He's not going to have a choice to worship this so-called God from the sky that people have been seeing in the skies all along. That's what's been carved on the mountain all along. So I really think this is what is really here. Even in in the books of Exodus and the book of Numbers, it tells you that Moses followed, a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night, and this is what led the Israelites out of Egypt. And basically, when you read these scriptures, it tells you that they were following, to us, a UFO in the sky for 40 years. Okay, and sometimes when Moses would go into the tent, that UFO would come down and talk to Moses in the tent. And what happened to Moses as the story goes on? He got taken away by a light on a mountain. And it wasn't him that led the people into the promised land. It wasn't his brother Aaron that led the people into the promised land. It was that thing in the sky that led the people into the promised land. So, yes, we have some good ones and we have some bad ones. And I think that this is what was really going on here. This is my opinion. This is what I've been studying for 20 years. And this is the evidence that I have dug up that seems to fit, that seems to match what I'm seeing, what everybody else is seeing, what the petroglyphs are talking about, what the Anunnaki is talking about, what the Babylonian scrolls are talking about, what these ancient scrolls are talking about, and what Charles Holbrook, the first park ranger of Phoenix, Arizona, is talking about. So that's
that's
crazy,
heavy,
isn't it?
Yeah, our time is up. Again, how can they find you? Your YouTube. How can they find you on Facebook? And do you have a website?
Yeah, you can find me. Let's see, on YouTube. Just look for the Phoenix Lights, and then Petroglyphs in the Sky. That's all one word. Then you can find me on Facebook. Jeff Wooline, WOOLWINE. Petroglyphs in the Sky. And then you can find my website, petroglyphsinthesky.net, and that will bring you to my website. I do live YouTube shows from the studios here, and I talk about UFOs. I talk about the petroglyphs. And, so I really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe and follow my page. And if anyone has any UFO footage, please send it to me. I would love to look at it. I'd love to analyze it. And if you have any strange petroglyphs that you've photographed, please send it to me, and then we'll talk about it on the air. We're talking about it on the show. That'd be great. I love it.
Well, Jeff, I want to thank you for coming on. And if you want to come on at a later date, just email me and we can get you back on. Hey, it's been a real pleasure meeting you and having you on the show tonight.
Thank you so much, my friend. I really appreciate being here.
Okay, you take care.
Thank you, and you too.
Okay, night.
Good night.
Well, guess what? It's time for break. The hour and a half went by really fast. Again, check our website out at nightdreamstalkradio.com. We'll be back in 2 minutes. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio.